it was sought to be invulnerable. It was sought to be, could not be contested. It could not be attacked. And that has all been proved wrong. And that the American has got its American military structures have its Achilles heel. They don't have enough defense weapons. They don't have enough wherewithal to launch a major war. And they're not doing very well, even with a localized war, making mistakes. But let me just come to the big question. It's not, the price is going to be very high, because you remember in '79, the question of the hostages. The hostages were held at the embassy, and it brought down Carter and his administration. Well, there aren't any students in an embassy, but there is something called the Fifth Fleet. Where is that? Off Bahrain, I believe. That's quite a big hostage, is it not? It's not really it's not allowed to come out in public expression, but effectively the Fifth Fleet is an Iranian hostage. So, someone better wise up, I think, in the White House and say, we just have to get out of this, and we have to get out of this quite quickly. Otherwise, this is going to become a complete catastrophe for the United States, for its image, for its presence in the world. It will be a humiliation.
For decades, America was viewed as the world's uncontested military superpower. But what if that assumption is beginning to break down? According to today's guest, the biggest consequence of the Middle East conflict may not be who wins on the battlefield, but how the rest of the world sees American power. His predictions are controversial, and many will disagree with them. But if he's right, the geopolitical map could look very different over the next few years.
I think the most important, there are two important things. One is that this war is shredding the standing of the US, if you like, military presence. It was sought to be invulnerable. It was sought to be, could not be contested. It could not be attacked. And that has all been proved wrong. And that the American has got its American military structures have its Achilles heel. They don't have enough defense weapons. They don't have enough wherewithal to launch a major war. And they're not doing very well, even with a localized war, making mistakes. But let me just come to the big question. It's not, the price is going to be very high, because you remember in '79, the question of the hostages. The hostages were held at the embassy, and it brought down Carter and his administration. Well, there aren't any students in an embassy, but there is something called the Fifth Fleet. Where is that? Off Bahrain, I believe. That's quite a big hostage, is it not? It's not really it's not allowed to come out in public expression, but effectively the Fifth Fleet is an Iranian hostage. So, someone better wise up, I think, in the White House and say, we just have to get out of this, and we have to get out of this quite quickly. Otherwise, this is going to become a complete catastrophe for the United States, for its image, for its presence in the world. It will be a humiliation. So I think that is the only way out. But I don't think, the problem with us is as Maggie Haberman. I don't, I know she doesn't get on very well with Trump and so on. But as she points out, his psyche is changed in the second round. It is a psyche that is, that he believes he's sort of far more powerful, that he is an imperial leader, and that he can get what he wants and do what he wants, and he doesn't have to care about norms or laws or anything like this. And he admires ruthlessness. He made this comment, I think, paradoxically about Netanyahu, that, oh yes, there might have been problems with him, but Netanyahu, he's not afraid of war. And obviously that statement appealed deeply to Trump. Well, Trump has got his war. But, wars are not always just like Venezuela. I mean, it won't be,
Right.
it's not going to be like that. So, they have to think really hard. And this is the balance that the United States faces, I believe. I'm speaking very frankly, but I think honestly to you, is that on one hand, he has the choice of climbing down from the tree, which psychologically, I admit, is going to be, I don't know if it's possible, but that is one possibility. The other one is to go to all-out war. And I think that is going to finish the standing of the United States as being considered either as a serious political player or a serious military power, because people will have seen and learned lessons from the Iranian experience.
The guest's central argument is that this conflict is changing perceptions of American power. Whether viewers agree or disagree, his broader point is that reputation can shape future conflicts just as much as military strength. That leads directly to the next question. What happens to America's closest regional ally if those assumptions change?
Now, given that, what then does that mean for Israel? Because that's always been at the heart of all this for many in America anyway, is that, we have to support Israel, whatever. But now then, if what you described with the United States manifests and, the Sixth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain is now can't even go out, we end up, especially if we try the all-out war, we're going to fail. We're not going to succeed. And now then, we're not going to be able to protect Israel. So now Israel at the moment is fighting Hamas. They're fighting settlers in the West Bank. Sometimes they're fighting Yemen. Sometimes they're fighting in Syria. Sometimes they're fighting in Lebanon. And then now they potentially could go back to fighting in Iran. Can they fight this 7-front war without America?
No, absolutely not. And they know that. And that's why you had the chief of staff, military chief of staff, went to the cabinet about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I want to flash a red flashing light to you, members of the cabinet. The IDF is on the point of collapse. We don't have people. It's breaking down. Morale is dissipating. And he said, we would need not just one IDF, but 7 or 8 of the IDFs that exist now to manage what you've set for us, which you started after the 7th of October, when you changed the security doctrine from the Ben Gurion security doctrine to that of the Greater Israel security doctrine. The permanent security at the root, preemptive security against any threat that may rise up. The intent is sufficient for us to have to militarily erase it and destroy it. And he was very tough. And there have been others in former generals like Brick, General Brick. He's now retired, but he's well known. He was someone that, in fact, Netanyahu sought advice from. So he's not an outlier. And he says, if things go on like this, there'll be civil war in Israel, because everyone understands. They do. I mean, they can't come to terms with it, but they do understand that everything that had been claimed of the war in Iran, Israel's war in Iran, have failed. There's been no change in the government. They have not defeated the missiles. They have not ended, if you like, enrichment of uranium by the Iranians. None of the things have been achieved. Nothing at all, in fact, the converse. And this is said by Israelis, not me, but Iran has emerged the stronger as a result of this war, not weaker. It's pulled together society. It's brought cohesion to society, that people support the government, they support the Islamic State more than ever.
At this point, the guest shifts away from military operations and focuses on politics. He argues that battlefield pressures are increasingly shaping domestic political decisions, particularly around elections and leadership. Whether viewers agree with his assessment or not, he believes the political consequences could prove just as significant as the military ones.
Yet they cannot see what to do. And this is the dilemma. The Zionist sort of model that has, as amended by Netanyahu and others, has become untenable. The vision has become impossible. But they cannot offer an alternative. They don't know. And so Netanyahu is going into elections. The moment the polls show, he'll lose. And this means that he is desperate to find a solution. So he's urging America on, destroy Iran, to try and revive his message to the Israeli people that, he saved them from the bomb and that it was his efforts that brought Trump into this war. That's probably the only truth in his statement, but it's not very encouraging for Israelis. So it looks as if he's preparing to refuse to accept defeat in the elections. I mean, the Likud, his party, the other day had this grand meeting. They call it a Supreme Court. It's not. It's just an internal Likud meeting. And at that meeting, he said and got approval that if there was any security threat at all, he mentioned Iran, any security threat, he was free to cancel elections.
Wow. And
on top of that, he demanded and got that he would nominate every candidate if there were elections. Alone, no primaries, no elections. He, Netanyahu, would nominate, together with Sarah, of course, would nominate whoever would be put up by the Likud in elections. So he's preparing. You'd have two states now moving in this direction, it seems to me. You have Israel on one hand as the sort of pathfinder state looking at how to manage the whole process. He's already said, well, the real Supreme Court rulings don't apply. We're not going to obey them. And increasingly, you have in the United States, not quite the same because the situation is different, but you also have a president that is saying, well, we're going to have to change the ways votings happen, and we're going to have to make sure that everyone has citizenship, and we're going to have to look at separate states. So we have both of them moving towards this path where they may be trapped into a situation where they will say that they cannot accept the electoral result.
Yeah, that's just going to cause more chaos domestically in both of those countries, which will just add more fuel to the fire of potential civil war.
And which will affect, because don't forget, the Israeli election is in October, and the midterms are a month later in November.
Right.
So, there's going to be an interchange on that. One is going to affect the other, and the other is going to affect Israel.
The interview ends by expanding beyond the Middle East. The guest argues that if U.S. influence weakens, countries like China and other BRICS members could gain strategic confidence. He also points to energy security, technology competition, and AI as areas where geopolitical rivalry is increasingly shaping the global balance of power. Whether these predictions prove accurate or not, they frame the conflict as part of a much larger international realignment.
I think it first of all, it strengthens the BRICS because they can see a weakening America, and that if America's failed to subordinate Iran and reduce it to a vassal then it won't succeed with either Russia or China. So those states will take encouragement from Iran winning the war, very much so. And it will increase, of course, China's insistence to try and have a close relationship with Iran to secure their oil supply. I mean, China is only dependent, I think it's 7% on oil from the Middle East, but it's because China is such a big user of oil. It still amounts to a lot of oil. So they are very concerned about the security of their energy supplies. And that's why they'll be very worried about what Trump's doing in Iraq, because China also gets supplies, being closely involved in the Iraqi fields. And if these fields are going to be, if you like, Americanized in some way by this new prime minister that Trump is praising so highly, I think we'll see a China that is deeply suspicious of the United States, deeply sees, the whole process of that it is aimed at trying to put China ultimately under siege through squeezing its energy supply routes. Venezuela was just the first, but of course, putting a blockade on Hormuz would be a blockade that could be used against China. Of course, in other areas, we're seeing Chinese shipping is being seized and arrested, and all of this is a siege. Same, the opposite way around on Russia's exports. But I mean, corridors of energy, corridors of if you like, components for the economy, of supply lines. All of these things, America's trying to seize it and try and be in charge of it, particularly tech. And the rivalry there is becoming bitter as China introduces new AI models, cheaper. And what is more is you don't give up your data to them. You keep them in, you can protect your own data. You can just download them directly from China and start using them tomorrow. And it's going to, I think, revolutionize the AI. And of course, I mean, for some in America, not all, of course, I know there's quite a strong movement that really does not like the Silicon brothers taking over America either. And so China is moving fast. It sees a great threat to it from America. Not the same threat that Iran is under, but a threat to try and sort of, if you like, undermine its economic growth, undermine its economy in the interests of stimulating the American economy. But it's not going to capitulate either.
Throughout this interview, the guest returns to one central idea. He believes the biggest story isn't a single war, but a broader shift in global power. He argues that military credibility, political stability, and economic competition are becoming increasingly intertwined. These are his interpretations of current events, and history will ultimately determine how accurate they prove to be. But if nothing else, the interview raises a larger question. Are we witnessing a temporary crisis, or the beginning of a new geopolitical era?